Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Rollwise podcast. I'm Mike, and I'm here with my good friend in crime, Brent. Say hi, Brent.
Hello, everybody.
And we are here this week to talk a little bit about horror-y stuff because, as you guys know, Brent is our resident horologist, and he's got a little bit more to say before we close up Halloween, the spooky season, and all those kind of things. Since last week, Brent had recommended me a movie called The Ritual, and I sat down, watched it about an hour and a half, and I enjoyed the shit out of it. But Brent, you have some pretty strong feelings about the movie. Why don't you tell people why you thought I should watch the movie The Ritual?
Well, I thought you should watch the movie The Ritual because we spoke about Vaesen last week, which I feel the kind of Icelandic Nordic horror aspect is portrayed fairly well in The Ritual, being that culturally has some roots in that sort of mythology. So I felt it fit, and all in all, I think The Ritual is really well done movie. The creature design in it is good, as well as the story. I think is very good. So that's why I suggested it.
Yeah, I have to say that, we're not going to do any spoilers or anything like that, but I think Brent's recommendation, if you guys are looking for a movie that can kind of get you into the mindset of understanding the mythical creatures that still exist in some of those primordial areas of nature, The Ritual did a really good job kind of like separating you from technology. And I know, Brent, we just talked about that and how you said, if you have technology, it changes everything. But now that you mentioned that, I kind of replayed the movie a little bit in my head, and I was like, oh yeah, they totally did those things
Yep.
as they were traveling through the forest. Because so the premise of the movie is that it starts off with kind of the a group of friends. There, two of them go into a liquor store. One of them gets killed in a robbery gone bad, and then in I guess the way to in like memory of the guy, because he had planned on going to like Sweden and doing this hike. The rest of the people go to Sweden to kind of complete this hike. And then everything starts to go a little downhill after they do their little tribute to him. One of them gets injured, and then they're forced to take a shortcut through the woods.
They get lost in the forest.
Dun dun dun. And all kinds of creepy shit starts happening at that point. But to me, I thought there was a great buildup and kind of a great mystery applied to it. But yeah, I mean, if you want to watch a movie, it's only a couple of years old, right? It's only
2017 is when it
okay.
came out.
So
That's what I was going to
plus a
say.
couple.
That's what I was going to say. I don't think we have to worry about spoilers. It's 5 years old, which I believe is over the statute of limitations for spoilers. Is more than 5 years. If you haven't seen it, you probably won't. So but I think that's okay. But no, like atmospherically, I think it's really good. Like they don't expose the monster too early. Spoiler: there's a monster. They don't exploit the monster too early. And they do a good job keeping the tension of it, like moving through the woods and stuff like that. Like all that stuff is done really well. But yeah, horror movie tropes now. One of the things you will always see is limiting technology. Like most horror movies, like cell phones, like they'll either break or they won't work or they won't have signal or something. Like for horror writers, like the cell phone was one of the banes of their existence, because like why would you just not call somebody? Well,
So
your cell
I
phone's
guess my
broke.
question is, kind of going back to Hellraiser, a more recent horror movie. I don't recall if cell phones were even really thought about. I think they just went kind of partially insane and just acted irrationally, didn't they? I mean, or did the cell phones break and I just don't remember it?
Well, no, she like it. Well, that's the other trope, is they just ignore the fact that it's 2022 and no one has a cell phone around. Which I think is pretty much what they did in the new Hellraiser movie. I don't believe they didn't really talk about it. I think she called the cops from her cell phone when her brother disappeared at the beginning. Because the cops show up like shortly after that. And I think that's their elimination, is they're like, oh, no one's gonna believe you, sort
Mm.
of thing, because he just disappeared, so they just don't use their
Some
cell
blood on a
phone the
sink,
rest
and
of
that
the
was
movie.
really that was
Yeah.
all that she really could.
Uh,
She knew he disappeared because she saw him go in as she was
right.
drugged up, and obviously there's some blood on the sink, and he would have been cut. So
Right. And
yeah,
I don't think they're gonna call you like, and when they're towards the finale and stuff like that, like I don't think they're just gonna keep calling each other.
Oh, but come on. Like you could
Well,
imagine like somebody taking out their cell phone and like recording the lamentation configuration or something like
oh
that.
well,
Be like,
yeah, that's a trope too. It's like no one took any pictures of this. Like, um, there's a
well,
movie. I'm watching a series called Sinner, which is also really good. By the way, if you ever want to watch a movie or a show that illustrates what a Delta Green agent ruining like familial bonds is like through investigation, like it's man, it hits that perfectly. But anyways, like he has a cell phone, the guy, and he breaks into houses all the time, and like it's like, why is he not taking pictures of these things? Like he got into the house to find this evidence. Why isn't he taking pictures of it? And like it's a
compromised
it's
CIA
a it's a
technology.
it's a mystery, like, but yeah, no, like cell phones and like technology is always the thing. It's like,
Hmm.
nope, you can't call anyone, can't call the cops, whatever. Because like again, that kind of eliminates the horror factor when you can call for backup. Um, that one psychopath is probably not as scary.
Yeah. But you could imagine like, like let's just say the police believe you and send out a uniform. I feel like most of the time when it's like, something where there's the big bad or something like that, you'd get more of a Die Hard thing where the cop would be backing away in their car till they crash it. Send
Right,
everybody.
exactly. Yeah, I'm sure, like I believe I've seen horror movies where like that happens, but
Oh
like
yeah.
usually they try and figure out a way to like eliminate. Horror authors usually try and figure out a way to like eliminate that as a thing because it's easy. You just don't want to like you just don't want to dedicate brain power to it. I'm trying to think of like some other recent horror movies like Us. Like I think that's one of the first things that happens in Us when the
Hmm.
have you seen Us, the
That's Jordan Peele, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
and
No, I actually haven't seen us. I've got a long list of movies that are on my to watch, but I just
well,
haven't
not to
seen
spoil it
them.
for you, but I think like when the others attack, like the first thing is like I think they say that your cell phone, like they take out the cell phones, I think.
Hmm.
So like that's a pretty common thing. Or it just doesn't matter.
Just
Like I said with like Hellraiser and the Cenobites, it's like
there
it
are,
doesn't
well,
it's
that's
not
really
gonna
good
matter.
cosplay. Like
Right.
I
It's
could
not
see
gonna matter.
nowadays.
They could film well, and like the Cenobites like kind of want people to know they're around. Like they want people to try and summon them. That's like their thing. So it's like, oh, you filmed us? Oh, good.
Here,
They're not gonna
get
really
my good side.
recognize. Yeah, they're not really gonna recognize what we are. But if anybody is curious, like that's the first problem for like the Hellraiser demons is like if people are curious, they're gonna look, and the minute that they start looking,
They start
that's when
finding boxes.
that's when you start summoning hell demons with
Oh my
hooks and
God.
chains.
Could you imagine how that changes in today's society where, like they like, what is he's the pain, oh God, the leader, like Pinhead is the like the head priest of Leviathan or whatever, right? And imagine if like Pinhead had a website, like, oh, curious about finding your inner passion or something like that. Turns into like this weird self-help.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, Pinhead is the hell priest of the Sacred Order of the Gash.
Oh, okay. Well, okay, so that's sounds more legitimate than what I was just saying, like head priest thingy. Yeah.
uh, yeah, he's actually called the Hell Priest in the books. He's never called Pinhead, but and yes, the Order of the Gash is what the Cenobites uh, featured in the Hellraiser movies. That is what their group is called. Because
Okay.
there's in the fiction of the Hellraiser universe, Clive Barker universe, like there's more than one order that serves in hell
Hmm.
um, under Leviathan and other. I think there's even other demons, gods, whatever you want to
Uh,
call them in hell that people serve under.
it,
Um,
has there been comic books for this? Because if there have been comic books, I'd probably look those up. I'm a big
yeah, there has been. There's been quite a few actually. That's where a lot of it is fleshed out past
yeah,
the initial Hellbound Heart book.
yeah.
I
Okay.
mean,
Well, maybe.
there's even a conflict like between Hellraiser and Nightbreed in
Weird.
one set of comic books. Like the two Clive Barker like things like fight each other. So yeah, if you want to
That
look at
sounds very 90s almost, like Aliens versus Predators,
yeah.
Hellraiser versus Nightbreed,
Yeah, I believe
Mike
there's a
versus Brent.
Cenobite. Yeah, I believe there's a Cenobite that wants to wipe all of the Nightbreed out, and for some
Hmm.
reason Leviathan doesn't want him to, and they send like Chatterer. He sends like Chatterer to like kill the guy. Um, Not a Hell Priest for some reason. I don't know why, but yeah. So yeah. Oh, and just so I can say this, everyone complaining about I think there were some complaints about the new Pinhead or Hell Priest being a girl, being a female. Two things. One, Hell Priest in the books is super androgynous. Like it doesn't. It's more of an it than a man. And two, in the comic books, um, the girl from the first movie, whose name I can't remember off the top of my head right now, the girl, the heroine from the first movie, is later given the mantle of Hell Priest by Pinhead, so she becomes the new Pinhead. So,
Oh,
her
is that
being
actually in the movies? Like, I think I watched
that's in
only
the
the
comic book.
first two.
It's in one of the comic books. So
Okay,
I'm just saying, like, there is
precedent.
fictional precedent for Pinhead to be female.
That's fine.
Uh,
I mean,
and
that
like I
wasn't
said,
really the part of the movie I was really
so there were people that
frustrated.
were upset about it. There were people that were
No.
upset about it. They were like, he shouldn't be, um, Pinhead shouldn't be female, and there's
Hmm.
precedent for that. And my
Well,
argument is that Pinhead shouldn't be whoever the guy was that played it in like the last one before the newest one, because that was terrible.
okay, so that's Brent's hot take. If anybody wants to fight Brent or let us know how you feel, you can always reach us at rollwiseguys@gmail.com.
I am always willing to have a healthy discussion about horror movies.
Uh, do you think you get a healthy discussion when it comes that way? I'm not sure. We'll see.
I mean, it's
Just
horror
throw it.
movies. I mean, it's horror movies. Define healthy.
That's fair. That's fair. So yeah, throw us an email. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you hate, or just tell Brent he's an asshole for
And
crushing all of your
dumb.
hopes and dreams, or dumb.
I
Rollwiseguys@gmail.com.
I
Hit me.
accept criticism.
I don't. Brent accepts criticism. I mean, I don't. So, okay. Well, then, I guess kind of let's move on to games a little bit. We both know that we just wrapped up, a Delta Green game. It was fun. Crazy things happening. Those of you that like Delta Green, we were playing the Puppet Shows and Shadow Plays. It was a lot of fun. At the end, I think the beginning, we kind of got a little bit lost on some stuff, but I think cosmic horror is a lot of fun, and I think it's going to be nice to change from cosmic horror to kind of that folklory horror. So, Vason is session 0 next week, and so I think what we're going to do is once we get a couple episodes, like we're not going to do like a live play or anything like that, unless you guys convince us to do live play. But our group is going to go play through a couple sessions and see how Vason plays out, and we're actually going to bring hopefully my wife along, who is not a role player, so she'll get to tell you unadulterated how silly our hobby is or how much she loves it. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun. Delta Green, the what was it? Puppet Shows and Shadow Plays? Is that what it was
Puppet shows
called?
and Shadow Plays. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I think you did a good job running the adventure. It was good. I think it's definitely a little bit dated. Um, as far as I think Delta Green has come a long way since that was written, but
Yeah.
it was fun. I think like we discussed it a little bit, some things that I think probably could use adjustment in the scenario, but it was fun. And the finale, like the wrap up was fantastic. It was
Yeah, and I think
horrific.
horrific.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're not going to spoil anything for anybody that may at some point want to play Puppet Shows and Shadow Plays, but if you can get a copy of it, I believe the Arc Publishing did a recent Kickstarter to like I don't know, I don't really know what happened, but I'd heard that they recently did a Kickstarter to like republish some of those books,
I
and I
don't
think
know if that one's in that though.
I thought that they had done some republishing, and I thought it might be included because it is, from what I understand, it is one of Delta Green's like more popular scenarios. I mean, there's obviously a lot to choose from, but so I guess I'd be curious to see if they republished it and kind of gave it a 2020s flair for how it could play out.
Are you talking about the conspiracy Kickstarter that came out recently? If so, it is not in that one.
I don't know the names of the Kickstarters. I just heard that they had done a recent one, and you could still back it.
I
So
think that is the most recent one. Oh, if it's a newer one, then that makes sense because I have the conspiracy. Like I just got the PDF for the conspiracy, which is one that they
ooh.
ran a while ago. And yeah, it's not. It's not in that one for sure. I'm looking at the glossary right now. If
Okay.
there's another one, it might be in that one. It's definitely not.
So because this is if it might be this, I might have been thinking of this one, and maybe it's not in this one then, because
because they are reprinting some of them.
hmm.
But like I said, I just happened to. It's funny because I just got the PDF for it, so
Nice.
you bringing it up was kind of funny. Funny
Is
question.
it
Just
so?
not in
Because it
that.
is called the conspiracy, and then need to know. I just actually looked it up. And did you spend the full
I did.
money on it? Oh, you did. Wow.
I
So
did.
that's like a lot of Delta Green stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I
Wow.
pretty much support anything from the most of the Delta Green stuff. I support pretty much anytime it comes up because it's very well written most often. So
Because this includes like because they had different levels or whatever, right? Where they could that they had several books that like once they started earning some of those higher unlocks, there were like a full library that you could get.
yeah, I spent like bucks. I think I, that's what I
More
kept
money than
saying.
you want to talk
Oh,
about.
I don't. I mean, I don't care. People who know me know that I'm willing to spend money on my hobbies. I do
Yeah,
play Warhammer 40K, which is, you know, money sink extraordinaire. So
fair.
I'm not,
That's
I'm
fair.
not, I'm not worried about telling people that. But yeah. So I will keep an eye out and let you know what is included in it. But I don't think that one is in it from what I saw so far.
Oh, okay. Well, according to the latest update, you'll find out whether you got you'll find out the hardback edition in January or February or something.
Yep.
So,
Yep. I expect to get the hardback edition in January or February. I do have the PDF right now, but it's not on my computer yet.
oh, okay.
So
Well, good. Well, you'll have to let me know how it goes. So yeah, so we're gonna be moving different horror types, kind of keeping with the fall and dark and dreary season. And so hopefully we'll be solving some Nordic mysteries in the next couple of weeks, finding some Vaesen, some or not. Who knows? I'm not going to say you're going to find Vaesen because it could be Vaesen.
yeah, don't spoil your own game already. That would be unfortunate.
I feel like if we're playing something called Vaesen, and I don't know, like, I mean, just to be honest, I mean, like, I kind of feel like a Vaesen should be somewhere in there.
I ran an Unknown Armies game without any Unknown Armies things in it for I don't know 5 or 6 sessions. So
Hmm.
you got to
Yeah.
mix up those. You got to mix up those expectations,
Well,
sir.
I mean,
You gotta,
maybe mystery two and beyond, but
you
like the
gotta,
first mystery,
you
like
gotta keep them guessing.
first mystery. Oh, you hit a time machine and you're in 2022 with your 19th century Scandinavian people wondering what happened to Stockholm.
Nope, you're in 2020 and you all have COVID.
Oh Jesus. Yeah,
Good luck.
take
Godspeed. It's a real
that.
horror. It's a real horror story now.
What is the internet? What are these little microbes? I don't understand anything.
I feel
Um,
like crap.
did you ever? I know this is a stupid tangent, but did you ever see the Beforeigners or even hear of it?
Mm-mm.
So I think it's on HBO Max. I want to say, and it's funny that we mentioned that because the Beforeigners, it's kind of a weird. I think it's a cop drama would be the way to put it because there's this time anomaly that's happening, and I've only seen one season. So if there's a season two or later, I don't think it's on HBO yet, but there's a time anomaly that's happening that's causing people from various times to land in modern day. I want to say Sweden. I want to say it's modern day Sweden, but I could be wrong. And it's these there's a police officer that you're following that has an addiction to kind of a drug that they introduce all these temporally displaced peoples, and his partner is this female shield maiden. And so you have this modern drug-addled cop and female shield maiden who has, historic sensibilities. Like it's kind of a weird show,
That
but it
sounds
was
like
kind of
one of the
fun.
weirdest things I've ever heard of. But
It
yeah, it sounds interesting.
Well, I mean, because it's like, I guess, more European. Like one of the things that you see is you see this guy that's like from really old Scandinavia, and he's like hunting naked, kind of like
Uh,
primal kind of thing.
does someone say you're in the what is it? You're in the past times. You're in the Viking times. What is that from Kung Fury?
Oh, yeah. I don't remember what he says that now, because it was like, oh, a laser raptor, like,
Yeah,
oh
she's
shit,
she's like you're from we were in the before times or something like that. Yeah.
yeah. No, I did like I did think that was funny. It's like, oh shit, a laser raptor,
But
like,
that's kind of what that sounds like. Is when he's looking at the Viking maiden, he's like, "Oh,
yeah.
I must be in the before times."
God, I haven't seen Kung Fury in a while. I'm gonna have to go watch it. 30 minutes of pure enjoyment for me. So
30 minutes of pure something. That's for
so
sure.
so yeah, we'll get in our couple sessions in. We'll give you guys an update a few weeks from now to let you know how Vason is in practice rather than just in theory and impression. And yeah, I think that'll be a fun update to provide at that point. So yeah, so this week we kind of actually we're going to keep this episode a little bit shorter than the previous episodes. So we were going to kind of head over to Reddit and hit up r/RPG horror stories. And I think I'm going to mention this up front. I'm not really a trigger warning kind of guy, but like some of these horror stories are not safe for work. And I mean, you know what? If you're not interested in hearing things that enter into delicate topic territory, I mean, I don't, I can't, I don't know all the things that are going to happen in these stories because I mean, maybe I like read the title and stuff. So, I mean, anybody that wants to continue listening past this point, just be warned. This is, adult content, not safe for work, may involve all kinds of things that are bad. So I'm not going to give you a specific trigger warning because I don't know it specifically to trigger warning you for.
Reddit space can be bad,
Yeah.
and everyone should just be aware of it. We did talk about Unknown Armies with a trigger warning,
Mhm.
which we should probably apologize about now.
What?
Um,
We talked about it with a trigger warning or without?
without.
Oh, well, I mean,
Um,
sorry.
so no, that's fine. We'll apologize about that now because we should have, and we will work to be better at that in the future. But yeah, so trigger warning on what may be kind of offensive with some of the stories that we might talk
Yeah.
about, and they probably aren't directly related to our views, but they
Yeah,
could be offensive. So, yep,
exactly. And
Reddit,
and
the place
truthfully, I
of
mean, because these aren't probably like the games themselves and these are people experiencing stuff around the games, I would expect there to be sexual stuff most likely. Because I think that's the where horror story is usually originating this. It's usually sex stuff. So I'm just gonna say it now.
that's true. It does have a tendency to come up.
All right. So I know I kind of saw some that based on title alone sounded like some good juicy talking points. Did you want to start or you want me to go with one that is a shorter story? Um or there.
You go ahead and do yours, and then I will follow suit.
Okay. So these are first of all not ours. We're just reading and commenting from the internet. So we'll be providing our commentary either throughout or after or whatever we feel like. We don't really have a structure here, so RPG horror stories r/ from user Daddy Zoinks. Okay. So my first D&D terrible experience. I'm gonna put on my best narrating voice. So, ooh, there we go.
Narrate us away.
I'm gonna try. This was a while ago, so I apologize for not many details. In my freshman year, I had started getting into D&D, so I joined a club. It was a student-led club, and the teacher that signed off on it was usually was nowhere to be seen. This is important to the story. There were 3 to 4 people in the group. One of them is the DM, who's around 5'11" and 350 pounds. In this time, I was around 5'2" and 170 pounds. This guy completely towered over me and was pretty intimidating. The actual D&D game was pretty cringy, as a lot of girl NPCs were overly sexualized. But this has mostly to do with the DM. After the club, I would walk home often. The club ended around 7 p.m. This guy would always follow me home and weirdly harass me. He would force his way into my house or be super touchy with me. He's bombarded me with super invasive questions like what my bra size was. I brought it up to the other members to see if we could do something about it, but a lot of the members were younger than him and boys, so they looked up to him. Ooh. Eventually, I left because I couldn't deal with the harassment, which happened regardless of the club. I eventually told a teacher I was on pretty good terms with. From what I heard, he was forced to leave the club, take a class on sexual harassment. It sounds a little unusual, but the school I went to was extremely strict and named after a dead police officer. Though it didn't help, and he still showed up at my house a lot, threatening to unalive himself if I didn't talk to him, etc. Eventually, I moved away, and he could only contact me through social media, which was easy to ignore since I wasn't super into social media at the time, but it sucks that my first experience with tabletop games. Wow, that's the end. That took a lot of turns there. What do you think?
That's one of the worst things I've ever heard in my entire life.
Oh, welcome to RPG Horror Stories.
Yeah, I don't know.
I assume this is like high school stories, so even creepier, right? Like, do we
Yeah.
assume that this is a high school freshman that had to have some sort of like,
Well, there
gender
was
split sign off?
yeah, no, there was teachers involved because if it was like a like high school or if it was like a college, no professor is going to care.
Yeah,
Um,
like nobody gives a shit. They're gonna just be like, "Can we use this room?" Yeah, I'm not using it. And
right?
fucking
They're going to be
peace
like,
out.
yeah, just
I'm not
just
paid to
don't.
talk to you kids outside of
Yeah,
class.
don't blow anything up. Maybe they may give a passing don't blow anything up. Yeah, so it's probably high school, which it's a shame. Like I always hate hearing about people having just a bad experience with I don't know. Again, this is kind of what I said about um like horror games. Is like your table should be a safe space. Don't make it shitty for people. Um, don't just don't do that.
And maybe
Um,
it's just alien to me, but like having somebody follow me home, like what? Like if I
well, as cisgender males, that is a problem that we don't really suffer from.
yeah, I guess.
No, like I'm realizing, like I can't imagine anybody like following me home for any reason, let alone um that sort of thing. So yeah, I think that's probably one of the things about us is it isn't common for I think guys to have that same sort of problem, really.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I guess I've never had that problem, in myself. So I guess, from an empathy standpoint, I probably am empathizing more from the position of just trying to imagine how horrible that would be to try to explore a hobby. And I have to say that like D&D groups are pretty common, in schools now, I would assume. Like it seems like this is not so niche, and it's becoming more and more available. It doesn't seem impossible to find a teacher that has experience with running these kind of things, but it just seems like to me it seems like there was a pretty big failure at some point, because obviously there was this situation that was created where the guy just turned into some weird stalker, and also that unaliving themselves bit. Holy shit! Like, talk to
Oh
me, or
yeah,
else I
that's
do this nasty thing. Like, talk about being a hostage. Like, I feel so
yeah,
bad for this person.
that's yeah,
Like,
that's frankly a lot of craziness in one spot.
yeah, and that's not even that long of a story. I mean, that's Jesus. Oof.
Yeah, that's a lot of definitely a lot of crazy in one story. But yeah, like hopefully this person got
Yeah.
hopefully they got another chance with a group that's probably better. I mean, we've all I don't know. I've I've been involved in some. Yeah, there's a certain element sometimes to nerdery, like being a nerd and doing geeky things like role playing games, where you can occasionally run into people who are a little on the interesting side, let's say.
Yeah. And I mean, I think, and maybe this is just me, but you kind of like, you don't want to judge people just based on appearance alone. But after people start talking with you and behaving how they behave, you can make pretty quick character judgments, and all of a sudden start doing that. And I think if somebody were to like come up to me and be like, "Hey, what's your penis size?" Like,
They just want to
uh,
play. They just want to play Fatal with you, Mike.
yeah,
Like,
they just, what did you roll on penis size? Like
yeah,
I
they
think
just you just want to play Fatal. I don't know what your problem is.
I think that would be it. I think that would be a little bit much. And so I guess that I think that would be probably the equivalent of somebody going up and being like, "Well, what's your bra size?" It does look as though there is a follow-up post from them that says the reason why they had not gotten like a restraining order or something along those lines was that their parents weren't home most of the time, and they threatened to get one a couple times because. But it was discouraged because a lot of his friends told me since I yelled at him to leave him alone and pushed him off me, my personal space, it wouldn't go through because it seemed like they were abusive towards him, and it was him and his friends 5 to 6 versus my word. Oh my god, this is just exacerbates this. The only reason the teacher listened to me without bringing him his because I had gotten hospitalized due to the stress and paranoia during school because of it. I was pretty discouraged at that point to do anything other than just fight back and avoid him to the best of their ability. Fucked up.
Well, yeah, this is unfortunately this is kind of a classic, like
Yeah,
one of those
like
classic stories about that that aren't good pictures of our society at all, let alone a niche, a kind of
yeah.
a niche area like gaming where it's like, oh yeah, these are terrible. This is why people don't tell people things like about this. That's what's
Hmm.
horrible. Um,
Exactly.
so yeah, don't
Yeah. So I guess my final thought.
fellow gamers, don't be shitty to anyone, let alone beside for any reason.
Well, don't be shitty and don't be creepy, I think is the moral of the story.
Well, I
Like,
consider creepy
I feel
overlapping
like,
too. So
I don't know, I feel like just to call it out, just because, like if you said don't be shitty, I'd be like, okay, I will stop using bad language and all that stuff. But I feel like this is a new level to me. So I'm just only adding that addendum just because I don't want there to be any question.
good call.
Yeah, so that's my horror story. I started off top tier horror, I think.
I think you win. For the
I wasn't
record,
trying to.
I don't think the one that well, I mean the one that I have is the same sort of like uh here, let me read the one that I have because I think it fits the same sort of just like abuse of
Okay.
female gamers, which shouldn't be.
Is that maybe that's the trend? Is that horror stories? I don't know. Maybe I'll have to look at the horror stories. I wonder how many situations this comes up. Ugh, it's kind of horrifying in
Probably
itself.
more than you'd be comfortable with.
Hmm.
So I'll go ahead and read mine. I don't have the name here of the person for some reason, so I apologize if they listen to this and they're angry with me. Go ahead and just tell me, and we'll give you a shout out. I apologize. So playing a tabletop RPG called Numenera, not super important. You know about it beyond it's an over-the-top sci-fi game. There's real emphasis on anything being able to happen. One of my PCs was a low-level Magneto-esque character in that he could control magnetic fields and exert telekinesis over metal objects. Another player, her character started out as a human, but through the course of the game had her consciousness transferred into a robot body. Robot PC's player is talking about what we can do next. It isn't really a very heated discussion. Magneto PC player declares, I use my power to hold her mouth shut. and was legit expecting the player to stop participating in the discussion of what to do next. Now, I want to make this part clear. He was actively trying to silence her out of character and get her to stop participating for no reason other than he was in a trollish mood. Now, as we all know, most women absolutely love it when men around them invent new ways to silence them and talk over them. That's super fun for them and really makes them want to come back to the said game and spend time with said men. And if you haven't figured out the paragraph is sarcasm, yeah, we know that's sarcasm, dude. Needless to say, she stopped being friends with him over the incident. I can't say I blame her. The humble Reddit post cannot fully express just how messed up the situation was. I'm kind of paraphrasing the last thing.
Yeah, that's kind of a shitty thing to do, is as a PC taking away your other PC's agency or at least attempt to.
It's super shitty from like, I don't know. It's just like super shitty in every regard, in my opinion. Like, it's like, why would you do that to another player? Like avoiding the feels bads is so important to me, and like just being like, yeah, I don't want you to be involved in the game anymore, is just like the worst sort of just thing to me. Like it's the worst sort of behavior where somebody's just like, yeah, I just don't want you to talk anymore.
Well, and it's weird because like I think, and I'm not a professional advice giver or anything like that, but if I were to suggest, if you had that kind, I mean, obviously they said the person was being a troll, so this seems like it was intended to cause some, like tend to provoke some sort of reaction. But I mean, as a DM or other people at the table, you kind of have to like squash that kind of thing. I mean, unless you're doing it for, like unless there's a purpose for doing it. I can't really see it based on this post. I can't really
other than being a shitbox.
Yeah, like other than, I mean, just being an ass. But it feels like if that were to happen, it seems that you're taking that player out of it. You might as well just tell them, hey, nobody wants you here at the table, and just be more upfront about it. Like, because why would you want to like go through the process of like hurting someone like intentionally just so that they leave? Because I mean, if you don't want them to be there, that's one thing. But I mean, if you're just trying to troll them, like, also kind of shitty too. Because I mean, like, you're like, oh great, that was so much fun. Haha, I remember that one time you couldn't talk and you got really mad.
Right, like yeah,
that's a good story, bro. Like,
that's totally the sort of thing that would make me like, I have left games for less than that. So
yeah.
like her ending a friendship with a person over that is probably 100% legit. Let alone that is like, I don't know, it just comes down to like, you just don't you don't respect them as a person, let alone as like a gamer. Like,
well, and I think there's one caveat to that story, is that and this is where you know your table, you know your friends, you know how it is. If that humor plays at that table and that person enjoys that kind of humor, that's one thing. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think you always have to put that in there. And like
you mean the person it was happening to?
Yeah, if the person it was happening to and the person that was doing this have that relationship where they know that they could create kind of like a zany moment of role playing where he's like, oh, I zip your mouth. Oh yeah, well then I change over to radio frequency and now your radios go off with my, you know what I'm saying? Like, kind of had a tit for tat thing that was going on where they just kind of trolled each other. I think that mutual trolling would have been.
I'm willing to bet this is like way worse than that. I'm willing to bet in this case, the minute the guy said I hold her mouth shut with my abilities, I bet she tried to talk and he's like, no, you can't talk. And I'm willing to bet this is miles worse than like what he has here. I'm willing to bet that, like, yeah, I just have a feeling like it's probably a worse story than it's even related to here, because I'm willing.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. So like, and the other thing that I think is funny about this post, and I just have to mention this, is like the comments are also funny, because they're also like, well, why wasn't she some sort of mechanic metal? So they couldn't do that. And it's like, I think you guys are missing the point a little here, guys. The point isn't that, that they couldn't have figured out a story way around it. The point is the guy shouldn't have done it in the first place. Like, that shouldn't have been a thing that came up at all.
Yeah.
So that was kind of funny to me too, is just that piece. But I mean, anytime you, like I said, anytime you were removing someone's agency in the game, your game just got worse.
Yeah, and especially just for something as silly as trollish reasons. Like, I'm not sure what kind of mood you have to be in for that, but whatever. Horror, another horror story. This time involving the player's agency being removed. Yeah, horrifying.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that, let alone that it's, you know, potential sexist implications.
I always feel weird because I feel like my gaming tables are so much more tame than I'm seeing here on RPG horror stories. Like, I don't, not that I want my table to reflect any of these. So let's just go ahead and start there. Like,
So funny story. I do have one thing, one instance that I guess is a horror story, but
okay,
it was weirdly benign, but it was probably pretty. It probably had an effect on the person that it happened to. We so I think you know the story. Like, I started the group that I did the majority of my role playing with in college. I met kind of like what the guy said earlier, is I met via bulletin board at a university, in like the university cafe. And I was like, at the time I was going to like this philosophy group, and I was like, I would rather do that. And kind of just on a whim, contacted the guy that was running it. And so a few years later, we were in a group, and we kind of decided that we needed like another person, like a fifth person or something like that. I don't remember if we lost somebody or what happened, but we decided we needed a fifth person, and we posted it, just like they posted when they found me. And this girl from Finland joined our group. And she was really nice. She was like this punk rock girl from Finland, and she seemed really cool, and we were having good conversations with her. But we were playing D&D, and like something happened, and I don't remember what, and she brought up American politics for some reason. Um, and my friend looked at her and said, "I'm sorry, we don't discuss politics if anybody cares." Um, and like it just became like so awkward for like the like last 2 hours of the game because of that. But that's a quote that stuck with me for like my entire life. We don't discuss politics if anybody cares. So yeah.
I'm just saying that to the table. We don't discuss politics.
We don't discuss politics if anybody cares. Which
What's always interesting
but like it's
is
one of
that
those things. It's like I don't know how we could have diffused the situation any better than that, because I remember it was pretty inflammatory, whatever she said. And it was just weird. It was just weird. The whole thing was just kind of strange because yeah, it was just a little weird. And then yeah, we don't discuss called politics if anybody cares. Um but yeah, but that's one of those, like, it's not a horror story, but it was definitely uncomfortable. And she didn't ever come back. Like, she decided we were not the gaming group for her, which is fine, but it was just one of those things that was kind of weird.
yeah. And well, and like, sometimes you have insurmountable barriers. In this case, it seemed to be some sort of inflammatory politics that maybe she wanted you all to agree with, like, at least in spirit. And you guess you just didn't.
We
So
all hate the United States.
uh I don't get to say this word very often, but I'm a jingoist, flag waving American. Yep. No, just kidding.
Yeah,
I don't know. I like living here, but I'm not like, I don't think politics is going to be part of this podcast, but let's just say we're in America. How about that?
it's true. It was strange. Like, it was strange that, like, I don't know, we were such a non-political group. It was kind of laughable that it came up at all, because like none of us would have talked about it. Like, period.
Well,
Like, none of us would have been like, "Oh yeah, take that, Finland." Um, so it was just weird that it was weird that it came up at all, and then it just ended poorly. But
well, I
um,
wonder. I wonder if you dug if there were more horror stories related to like political affiliations coming up in people's gaming groups and tables. Because I do have to say
Oh,
that
I'm
like
sure there is.
10 years ago probably wasn't as big of a deal, but now with everybody so plugged in and on this information diet of crazy, who knows?
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure politics come up. I had everybody. I had another story about somebody's religious beliefs and D&D, which is kind of a if that comes up as a surprise, I'm assuming politics is even more because you just don't expect. Like, it's easier to hide.
Yeah. Well, it seems like it should be easier to hide, although there are definitely some things you can do to wear that on your sleeve. One could
Well,
say.
that's true. If you show up with a MAGA hat, yep.
True. Who knows? Who knows? But moving on from non-politics to one more. I do have another story if you want me to read it. This one is not I think this one is not about women in that way.
In that way, that should
Like
be
because the
interesting.
last two ones seem to be like, guys versus girls.
Well, it definitely definitely
That's what
some gatekeeping in the hobby, which I think is
gatekeeping and
topical.
sexual harassment,
Yes.
maybe. Yeah, I don't think this has that. So, so this is a post that is that one time I ran a truly evil party, by user disfreaking guy. So I'm gonna read this to you guys, and I think the reason why this one I thought was, I think it'll be interesting is that it's like, since it's spooky season, why not dabble in a little bit of evil? So, it was college. I was young. I needed the money. And side note, that's how all stories should start, really.
Side note, that is not how all stories should start, and that does not sound like a story that is appropriate for this podcast.
Oh yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, you're probably right. I was in college. Well, I mean, I was in college. I mean, that's what
I
at
was
least
in
is started.
college. I needed money.
Yeah.
I feel like the story involves dealing drugs or something else.
Well, and okay, so we could say that there are probably some stories that could start like that. Moving on. Please don't judge me too harshly. Session 0, the party told me they wanted a truly evil experience. Not funny over the top evil, not fade to black when the bad stuff happens. Real evil. No topic was to be off the table. I agreed. See? So what they were doing is they were selling dark DMing for money. If that's a thing. It seems kind of like a weird role play session that's going to happen.
I feel like my players wouldn't be ready for that.
Well, let's find out. Let's find out what happens. So, session 1, they rolled into town and found a homeless man. They beat him unconscious, robbed him, and left him in the snow. They then went into the bar, paid for a couple of cheap beers for some slavers they found, sold them the homeless guy, and followed them back to their camp. They then murdered all the slavers after getting them drunk and sacrificed all the slaves one at a time. There was an uncomfortably long, detailed RP session involving butchering men, women, and children in horrific ways. This is already much darker than I thought it would be. Session 2.
I don't. Yeah, interesting.
So, session 2, they assaulted a halfling village, butchered every living thing in town, razed most structures, set up altars to evil deities, and started raising the dead. Graphic torture, parents watching children die. One player had a vampire spawn cohort, so they raised 4 8 to 12-year-old kids as vampire spawn. They used those little monsters to infiltrate another town. They poisoned the wells. They spread disease in the granary with undead flesh. They killed and raised the mayor as a vampire spawn, and then left the town to its fate and left the vampire kids to feast. Ooh. Final session, they needed the say-so of a half-orc magistrate to gain access to the palace, so they could sacrifice the emperor to Dispater by dropping him into a portable hole full of molten iron. They acquired 2 young boys with the promise of riches and a better life and gave them to the magistrate as body slaves. I had to RP a sweaty-faced, heavy-breathing pedophile being ecstatic while walking away hand in hand with those kids. One kid looked over his shoulder at the party with fear in his eyes and they let him go. They then murdered the emperor. Then I stopped DMing for those people. Man, it sounds like he made 3 sessions work. So they must have been paying real good for this kind of torture porn uh, that they were going through here. Oh, there's some more. I Oh, okay. I had met the people who were at the table at a tattoo convention and then gone to a few industrial shows with them before playing. Very much dark alternative culture, still wildly uncomfortable at times. I still have pretty loose rules about what's okay and what's not. I still allow evil characters, but I won't do another full-scale hardcore evil campaign again. Wow. How does that one register on the scale?
Well, I mean, they were all. I mean, obviously, they all consented to it. That's what they wanted to do. I mean, I wouldn't run a game like that. I don't think.
I'm just wondering, like, how much you get paid to run a game like that. I mean,
I had some friends once who suggested that we run a. I don't know how many people of our listeners know about Warhammer 40K, but there is a Chaos Warband called the Emperor's Children, who are dedicated to Slaanesh, the god of pleasure, pain, and everything in between. And like they wanted to run a Chaos game where they played just Chaos Space Marines of Slaanesh, and I was like, no, because it would be just like it would that it would be a
that
game
would be
like
the
that.
session.
It would be a game like that. It would be all horrible stuff like that. But the minute that I have to GM someone who likes children too much, it's probably I don't know. I mean, they're all consenting adults. It's what they wanted to do. Cool, but for them, but like, I
Yeah.
don't think I can handle it. Like, that's not. I don't like. I guess my question is why does he feel like this is a horror story? Because he got paid to run this game for these people.
That is, I guess now you're flipping it back on him. Is it really a horror story? I mean, he did I mean, other than them I mean, maybe he didn't realize how deep and dark that well was. I mean,
But I
they
mean,
said,
he could have stopped it at any time. So I don't understand. Like, he could have been like, "Yeah, I'm not running this game anymore." So I don't understand how.
hmm,
I don't understand how it's a horror story from his perspective. It's a horrible story. Don't get me wrong. I don't want anybody to not question that. It is horrible
I was, I
as
was
a
about to say,
story, but
this is where we find out Brent agrees with him. Like, oh,
but in his perception, I don't understand how. Like, like if he felt that bad about it, why did he keep playing?
maybe it's one of those things that as he said, he needed the money. He was too young to really be making good decisions, and we're not here to judge him too harshly. Maybe he just got in over his head. Like when you start doing drugs and you don't realize that you like have no escape. I mean, he obviously had an escape after 3 sessions, but like as soon as he was in, he was like, "Oh shit, they prepaid for 3 sessions, and so I have to somehow make peace with 3 sessions of apparently progressively eviler and eviler darkness." Um, maybe that's what
But I mean,
happened. I don't know.
he's still. I mean, he still has the choice of giving the money back and being like, I'm keeping the money for the sessions that I run. I can't run another session like this. And like
Yeah,
I just
I don't know.
don't
I'm just not trying to judge him too harshly. I'm trying to make excuses
I'm
for
not
him.
really judging him too harshly either, but I mean, I feel like this is part of me feels like this is a post about bragging about getting paid for being a GM. Like that's sort of what I'm saying is like I got paid to do this seems to be part of this, and yes, it was a horrible situation, but like
Hmm?
it seems like he got through a story arc.
Maybe. Um, okay. Oh, let's see. Um, or does he have any comments in here? Or I guess do they have any comments? I don't really know. I mean, this freaking guy. I mean, okay. Um,
Yeah, I'm just curious, like how. I mean, yes, it's horrible, but again,
He only has one follow-up post, and what he says there is his response to unimaginative plus evil kind of go hand in hand here. No plot arcs, no character growth, just a GTA spree as a group. GTA spree, is that really accurate, or is that worse sounding than GTA? I think GTA is just violence.
well, yeah, I mean, like I said, that was a lot. That's what I
Yeah.
would say about that. There's a lot of
So
a
his
lot.
response was, I mean, yes and no. There might have been a plot that eventually formed aside from cause as much damage to the Empire as possible and be as evil as possible while doing so. Had we continued, they were legitimately into dark rituals and sacrifices. They were very interested in spreading decay and undeath. And a part of the reason they killed the Emperor in the way they did was a character was a thrall. One of the characters was a thrall of Despater. I think it's Despater,
Yeah,
whatever.
Spader, I believe.
Oh, that's probably right. So that the sacrifice was lore accurate and done with purpose. They had a goal and plot. It was just an irredeemable one. They had character growth, and their dedication to evil powers grew with each horrible act. It's the character arc of a villain who gets too much, much worse. Who gets much, much worse. That said, I have a player who regularly plays chaotic evil, and I don't really think this matters. Uh, so I mean, yeah, I wonder. It sounds like this person seems kind of okay with the dark.
Yeah, it sounds like he said, "I'm cool with role playing with some Satanists." Is what
Yeah, I mean,
basically that sounds like to me. He's like, "I'm cool running a game for these Satanists. They're gonna pay me some money. We hang out at industrial shows. It'll probably be okay." And then it
and then
wasn't,
then
and
it
he
was a
was
little
kind of
darker than he
surprised.
expected, and maybe the RPG horror story was just what they did as players that he or they facilitated.
Well, I mean, he is. I mean, that is what he's saying. The horror story is that I ran this. They did
Huh.
these horrible things this entire time. But like I said, um,
So you almost consider this more of a brag. Interesting.
well, he might be a horrible person. Is more what I'm saying. Um, he definitely wasn't hanging out with people that have
A healthy mindset.
potentially have good sensibilities.
Would
Uh,
this fall under like torture porn then? Like, I mean, is this like just like some snuff novel that you're reading when you're doing this?
yeah,
Like,
probably. Like that would be. I would say yes. It would run as a like torture porn snuff novel, and like I said, it gets extreme. It gets a lot darker when like there's some boundaries that I don't think you cross, even in most horror movies. And when you start talking about playing a, let's just say a Baron Harkonnen's type NPC in your game, uh, that's pretty like that's pretty bad. Like that's yeah.
yeah. Well, so that took a little bit of a different turn than I expected based on how it was reading. And so I still stand by that. A really juicy story can start with I was in college, I was young, and I needed the money. Like I still stand by
I
that.
would say it was closer to what I said. How that story ended. And not the selling drugs part, but the other part that I would say he was kind of selling. Um, I mean, yeah, I mean, as long as they didn't, I mean, as long as they didn't, as someone who watches a lot of horror movies, saying that, I guess that's the thing, is him saying it's a horror story because these people had disturbing fantasy lives is a little weird because that's like saying I'm a murderer because I watch horror movies. Um,
But aren't those two hand in hand?
No,
Dun,
they're
dun,
not actually.
dun.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, like, so it's hard for me to say that, and I mean, so I guess that's my question of that. Is like, what's the horror story part? Like, is the horror story part that you feel scarred because you voluntarily ran a game for these people and they paid you money? Like,
That's a good question.
sure, okay, that's
Well, it's
horrible
horrifying for us that he
because you
would
made
that
that choice.
it's horrifying for us that the game like that actually existed. While the rest of us are over here being heroic, there are some truly evil and messed up people
We
running.
already know there's a lot of games out there that we wouldn't play in because they're of various subject matters that are outside of our scope. And this just leans on the bloody criminal, uh, corrupt view. Well, like I said, there's the whole game, 40K. You can play Chaos Warbands. Like,
Okay,
and
so
you can't get much closer to that than
no,
that whole game, that whole book, basically.
that's fair. And honestly, so basically what you're telling me is that if I am going to run that truly evil game, which obviously I'm not, you wouldn't want to be a part of it. So
I wouldn't want no, like kind of like we talked about. I think I don't really know if we mentioned this, but I know off podcast we talked about that Shadowrun game where um my players wanted to be drug dealers, and like they're trying to figure out the best way to market drugs to various people, and it was just like, nah, I think I'm out. I don't think I want to play sim drug dealer as you're trying to figure out what kids are going to run these drugs for you. I don't think I'm good. I don't think I'm good with that. And that was different because that started out as a vaguely heroic game, and they just came into a lot of drugs,
yeah,
which makes
and
me question this even more because like they're like, yeah, we want to run a real game. Like he knows these people, obviously. He's been to industrial shows with them. He knows that they have fairly dark personalities. Um, and they're like, yeah, we run a game for us and we'll pay you. And he's like, sure. Like he kind of knew what he was getting into.
yeah,
Um,
to some degree,
so
yeah.
I guess it's an unpleasant story to share with us, but I don't know how he perceives it as a horror story because at any time, much like any horror movie that I've ever watched, if it's too much, you just get up and walk out of the room.
Just
Um,
turn it off.
yeah, and like especially if I'm telling the story, um, like that means I have 100% control of the story,
Yeah,
and if he feels guilty about catering to them, which I'm sorry, but you could have just pieced out, man.
could have, but he had to see where the yellow brick road left, I guess. It led
But you
to.
don't, like, where that story ends.
You do.
Like the first time like they murdered, like the first time the guy got that look in his eye when he stabbed a child in the throat in your game, you go,
Hmm.
I gotta go to the bathroom. Oh no, I'm just packing up my stuff because bye. And then you just put all your shit in your bag and you run out of the room. Like
You just peace out through the window.
yeah, like you're just like,
Jump into the
I
alleyway.
have to go anywhere but here. Thanks, guys. Please don't have drugged me. Um,
Don't
with the
have drugged me.
soft drinks that you were serving. Like,
Yeah, we got a pepperoni pizza, some Coke Zeros, and oh yeah, that's our blood dagger, so we can make a pact before the game.
exactly. What are
What?
all these candles for, guys?
I'm just trying to set the ambiance.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, that's my concern about his horror story.
That's fine. I mean, I think you've made some very good points, and I guess I didn't actually, upon reading the title and kind of reading the story, I wouldn't have taken it that way. I think I was focused on the depravity of what the group did rather than necessarily. I mean, that he seemed to facilitate it. I mean, he might have been uncomfortable, of course, doing it, but you're right. He could have just said, you know what,
But
guys,
yeah, like
we've reached a point that we have, what are they called, veils and lines or whatever, where
yeah,
like there's a line that somebody crossed somewhere, and obviously, getting paid
yeah,
for something doesn't mean you have to continue. You just have to just give us
red
money
flag
back.
on the field. It's time for the referee to readjust. I mean, yeah, like that's my thing. Is it's an interesting story, and I'm glad that this person shared it. But like I said, like there's a lot to unpack, a lot more than just, oh
Yeah,
man, do you believe these guys? Because it's like
these two guys.
you were running the game, dude. What, like,
Yeah,
and you're like, it's a horror story because I had to deal with these people, and it's like you didn't have to be there.
yeah. Well, especially since like, well, it sounds like it was in person, but nowadays, like you could just be like, hey, guys, I'm gonna go to the store and get some McDonald's or something. I'll see you later. Boop.
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
leave.
My Discord blew up.
Ooh, I couldn't hear any of the terrible things that you were doing to that
I
small
can't
child.
ever play on that Discord server again. Looks like it got totally wiped out. Sorry, guys. Don't call me.
See ya.
That sort of thing. So,
All right. Well, then I think we can end it with that semi-horrible situation, but
and
not
I
necessarily horror
and I will
story.
say that one of the reasons that I can talk about these things like this is because it's not like I've ever had to defend the fact that I love horror movies.
You've never been called and a light shown in your face to say like, why? You were the guy that did it, right? No, I just
Right,
watched movies.
exactly. I've never had to defend the fact that so I've been in his shoes where it's like, why do you like horror movies? I don't know. It's just fun.
It's just horror movies, man.
Mhm. Yeah, so I don't think I'm gonna be a serial killer. Like that sort of thing. But like that's my question is, if you don't if you can't separate yourself from the fiction, like if you're gonna say it's horrible and it's a piece of fiction, all you have to do is leave the story behind. And if you're writing the story and you're like, this is horrible, you may
What
want
happens next?
to take a few moments of self-reflection. That's all I'm saying. Like,
That's it.
yeah, if you're writing a story and you're like, God, this is evil shit that I'm putting on this paper. I can't handle it. Scribble, scribble, scribble. You may want to just take a minute, like close your eyes, reflect a bit on what's going on in your head, and decide if really you don't like what you're doing or you do. That's all I'm saying is just like self actualization is important.
Okay.
That's what I
Well,
would say in that case.
that's fine. It seems like maybe he learned. I don't know. Whatever. He got through 3 sessions. Maybe it was enough for money for beer. Who knows? Maybe it was more money because they were
He's
living on
made
some
more
sort of.
money. I will say this: he's made more money GMing than I ever have. So
Yeah. Neither Brent nor I have done any professional GMing. We've GM for strangers. Like I've GM'd, I think one con game just threw
I
something
have not.
together. But I have not professionally done anything. So.
That's why I call us amateur professional gamers.
Oh yeah, I don't think that what I ran. This was like years ago. What I ran wasn't like. It was just like we had some people that were not doing anything, some downtime, so we just did a little quick game. So.
Amateur professional.
We're the double amateur professional, like
just amateur professional.
Yeah, APs.
Yep.
Okay, so with that, I think that's pretty much all the stuff we had to talk about today. So if you've made it to the end of the podcast, as always, thank you for listening. Hopefully, we didn't scare you away from listening to any future episodes. Remember, the views in those stories were not necessarily our own. We are not terrible people. We just read about terrible things on the internet because that's what's on there. And so we appreciate you guys listening through. If you have any comments, would like to, catch up with us, hit us on our socials or email rollwiseguys@gmail.com. And Brent, you want to take us away and send us off?
As always, please roll wise and roll well. And we will see you next time.
Yeah. And scene.
On this purely audio medium.
Yeah. Well,
and scene.
Yeah, and scene. Somewhere in there.